I really love climbing this mountain. I think it's rad. I think everyone should put it on their list, and that's probably why you're here, is because it's on your list. Maybe it's this year, maybe I mean, is anyone, maybe put it in the chat, if is anyone in Anchorage or Talkeetna right now? And ready to fly on? Put that in the chat for me, because that would be kind of rad. And or maybe it's a distant goal for you. All those options are great, and I think there's going to be something for everybody in that space. The things that we're going to cover on this call, like I said, 45 of West Buttress. We're going to go over strategies, summiting from 17 versus 14, walking versus skiing, guided versus independent, some of the nerdy gear I'm using, go over the Google Earth options for that. And then partway through, I'm gonna give you a little more on the course itself, of the Mountain Sense course, and the offer that I'm making tonight, in the next 24 hours or so. In the chat, there is a link, and this will show you a free preview of one of the course's lectures in the mountaineering course, and there's a PDF and there's some bullet points and some links and whatnot. With that, let's do it. First thing I want to go over is summit strategy. You'll get a KML file in the course. I tried to put it in the chat, but I couldn't upload a KML or KMZ file to Zoom for whatever reason. This is an overview of the mountain, and this left line is the West Buttress, which we'll zoom in on now. I could talk about this mountain for like days. And so specifically for this call, I want to talk about summit strategy from 14 or from 17. And so we're in feet here on the mountain, 5,200 meters versus 4,300 meters to 6,000, just under six, no, what is it? 6,192 meters. Most people, most of the time, will summit from the 17,200 foot camp. And that can still be a big day. Okay. The upsides to that is that it is less vertical and just shorter terrain, and gives you more, like, your time above 17,000 is arguably less because you're rested maybe a little bit. You can just like use a smaller weather window to go touch the top and come back down. What is become more in favor for agro athletes and people that want to not do the blue collar labor of, getting all your stuff up to 17, is start from 14,000 foot camp and go all the way to the summit and all the way back down. One common question is, if I have skis, is it a lot faster to do that? And I think the answer is no. It's not that much faster to be on skis unless you're going to ski like the Mesner or something, which is outside the context of this call. But it's a little bit slower on the way up because your pack is heavier, and it's a little bit faster on the way down. But skiing at this high of elevation is really hard. I mean, you can ski right off the summit. You can kind of glide across here, ski down. When Janelle and I did it, my wife, we skied this shot here. It's got a name, I don't remember what it is. And that was actually pretty good snow. And then we took our skis off and walked down the West Buttress. And then we skied the fixed lines, which isn't always an option because it can be icy. The burning question is, how fit do I need to be to go from 14 in a day? And there isn't a clear answer for that, unfortunately. But in thinking about this today and the day before, basically, if you have done, let's say, 6 18-hour days in your life, and you kind of love that crap, then this is probably for you. And now I'm not talking about like 18 hours, like I left the house, I drove, I did some hiking, I flew the drone on the summit for an hour, and then I made my way down and I got back home 18 hours later. I'm talking like out for 18 hours. Like, you know what it is when your body is in shutdown mode, but you still move. Because the big risk here is that you go from 14 or 17, honestly, and you empty the tank getting to the summit, and then you're a jumbly bumbly rubber legs when you come back down. And what kills people on this mountain is coming back down the Autobahn, which is a kind of sinister name, very fast highway in Germany. They're coming down this, and they, on tired legs, they trip. The uphill leg catches the downhill leg, and they fall over and they slide to their death all the way, and they stop down here. So they're not even falling over that gnarly of terrain, but it's gnarly enough, especially if it's been blasted by the wind and it's hard, hard ice versus snow, and it can be both. And so that is what you have to have in the back of your mind when you're making this decision, is like, do I have enough in the tank? Do I have enough in the tank? And that answer is going to be different for everybody, because some people know how to just like dig deep, and other people haven't had that practice and don't know how to dig deep. And so they're going to, I love that the 14 peaks. If you haven't watched that Netflix about the Sherpa that did the 14 8,000 meter peaks in like no time, he's like, when you think you're totally effed, you're only 50% effed. And it's like, it's so perfect, because he knows how to dig deep, and he could keep it together and keep his feet going where they were going. So he would be a perfect one to summit from 14. Questions about that in terms of, are there? Okay, good question, Tracy. There's no fixed lines, but there are fixed pickets. The pickets are frozen in the ground, and you have to have your own rope to clip to them, and you'd want to be fairly spaced out. Sometimes they can be covered because it's a big section of terrain. Most of the time they're not, but yeah, you want to clip those pickets if you can see them. And then if it's too icy, like, one person asked last year if they should just bring more ice screws for the Autobahn, and I would say no. Like, if it's that icy, then you probably shouldn't climb it. I mean, it's just, it's unmanageable to protect it. The downsides to summiting from 17 is you're not going to sleep as well. It takes a lot of work to get all your stuff up there. If weather comes in, you're sitting at 17 in like nowhere to go, whereas 14 camp is like super social, better weather, better breathing, warm, there's lots of supplies. It's just a more pleasurable place to be. At 17, you are acclimatizing more, so there's trade-offs. There's not a clear like, if this then that. You just have to make a decision for your group. Next thing, skiing versus walking. So if you can ski, even if you can ski like a little bit, you could consider getting up to about 11,000 feet. Like, this is all kind of green, call it green circle terrain up to 11,000 feet. And then you could just leave the skis there and climb just with boots and crampons above there, kind of no problem. You could also leave your skis at 14. The skis, the biggest upside is that they're going to be more buoyancy, so you're going to fall on crevasses less. And the biggest downside is coming down with a sled is really hard with skis. And that's why guided groups don't allow skiing, basically. Do you suggest bringing your own pickets for the Autobahn? You should probably bring a picket per person always, just for more for crevasses than the Autobahn. Because if it's icy, you're not going to be able to place a picket there anyways, which is the big concern. So there should be pickets, and they do maintain them along the way, or along the season. Okay, so back to skiing versus walking. The biggest upside to skiing is that it makes this lower mountain safer because of that buoyancy, and more fun. For example, when I did it one year, when we climbed it one year, we carried a single load to 7,800 foot camp, and then we did a double load. So we carried half of our crap up to 11, and then it took 20 minutes to ski back down to 7,800, where the people walking to get from 7,800, or excuse me, from 11 to 7,800, it took them 2 hours. And we were having fun and they were suffering. It's not that skiing is like the end all be all. It's just if you have that skill set, you should definitely utilize it on this mountain. The other thing with skiing versus walking, and again, depending on the year, this green line used to be the main route. So here's 11,000 foot camp, Motorcycle Hill, Squirrel Hill. It used to come over on this green line. If you're on skis, you can absolutely ski back down this way and do it quickly and safely. The reason that they do Motorcycle and Squirrel Hills is because they're avoiding this big serac zone. You can actually see the chunks of serac here that people are avoiding. But on skis, you can zip through that really quickly. And one year, I actually took my sleds on the way down and I just cut them loose, like ghost rode them, like let them go all the way down, and they stopped themselves down here. Maybe not recommended, but still pretty fun. And then we got this great pitch of skiing down. In terms of what ski to use, that's another common question. I would say like a 105 underfoot size ski, maybe a 100. I've taken rando race skis up there and they're light, but man, it makes the down not very fun. And ski boots, I would just wear whatever you normally wear, honestly. And you can beef it up with a lens sock or maybe a new Intuition liner. Got some questions here. Split boards instead of skis. Split boards would be fine, honestly, because it's like there's not a bunch of transitions. It's just up versus down. You would want to just get really good at going from riding down to crampons on. And the one spot in particular that would be tricky is windy corner. You might want to just put the board on your back and walk with crampons because it's side hilly. It can be icy, and sometimes you do that with skis as well. But that would be the one main differentiator, I would say. If you ski, do you summit in ski boots and over boots, or do you bring part mountaineering boots for a section? I've done both. I've brought 2 pairs of boots before, ski boots and mountaineering boots. I brought over boots up once, but didn't really use them. I also don't have cold feet. So if you have a tendency to have colder feet, then it might be a good idea to have over boots. And people will just literally cut the neoprene out to get their tech toe and tech heel connections in there. If skiing, how much do you upsize for warmth? I've never upsized for warmth before because the ski performance is just garbage. I think with a new liner that fits well and a nice footbed that fits well and staying hydrated, those are going to be better combatants of frostbite for your feet and cold feet in general. And then waiting for the day to go. If it's predicted to be high winds and super cold, probably don't pick that day for summit day. Next one, for the West Buttress, guided versus independent. So I'd say the main thing, so we have the cost, right? Doing it guided is more expensive, and you're on somebody else's program, and you have a big group of people, and sometimes there's poo-poo heads, as my 3-year-old would say, in a group, which might detract from the fun. Other times you meet great friends that you'll maybe be your best man at your wedding. Who knows? Yeah, you have all the things that come with group dynamics with a guided group. Generally speaking, the guides are very competent and great to work with. To guide Denali is a kind of high level thing. So people have been around the block, and the companies that do it, they guide it a lot. So like your program's going to be pretty dialed, and there's just going to be a lot less questions and a lot less decision making. One of the interesting studies that I saw was chess masters burnt 6,000 calories during a chess tournament, sitting there thinking and making decisions over a weekend. You will be that chess master if you're unguided or an independent party. And so you have to think, when should I go? Where should I go? Should I go left around this crevasse or right around this crevasse? Should we go for the summit today or not? And it's just a lot more mental energy that has to be expelled. And some people thrive on that, and some people are like, nope, hard pass. And so on Denali, both of these options exist. I will encourage you to do it. This is one of the few 6,000 meter peaks where doing it independently or unguided is kind of a hybrid unguided, because there's so many guided groups around. You can kind of float with that tide of safety as you cruise up the mountain, and you can draft a group or not. You're like, oh, the RMI crew is heading up, we'll head up. And that's, that's great. That's to be expected. What would be the mistake is like, I'm going to climb this myself and pick myself up by my bootstraps, and whatever they do, I'm not going to do that because I want to be perceived as being independent. And you're like, you're an idiot, like, grow up. Ski knives recommended. I don't know what ski knives are. Oh, like ski crampons. Yeah, bring ski crampons. Do you recommend skiing roped up below 14? Absolutely. Don't fall in a crevasse, you'll die. That being said, I've climbed this whole mountain unroped, and now I look back and I think, wow, that was dumb. Or that was just a big risk that I took. If you're skiing roped up downhill for the first time ever, that's not going to be as safe maybe as the second or third or fourth time you ski downhill roped up. And so you have to maintain spacing, and if you can stay on the track, that can help a lot. Side note, I'll take 2 minutes here. My friend Rob Coppolillo just passed away in a crevasse, and he was I should say he was an acquaintance. We got our guide pins the same time. He was up here near where I live. He was on an existing skin track on a glacier, like ski tracks everywhere, and he stepped off of those a few meters and fell in a crevasse in a totally flat, no dips, no sign of crevasses, and he fell 15 meters, and the coroner's report said he died of hypothermia. And he has 2 kids, wife. It's super, super sad. I'm 43 now, and I'd say my aptitude to take that risk is a lot lower than it was before Rob died, and it's lower before when I had kids. And so my point for you is that do what you need to do. Ski unroped, it's definitely more fun. That's one side of the spectrum, and skiing roped up thinking that you're invincible and you can definitely not die in a crevasse is the other side of the spectrum. And both of these have their pros and cons. Like, one side is safer, one side is more fun, but maybe neither of them is quite right. And so this is what I love about climbing, is that it's all within the context of that day and that minute and that piece of terrain. You have to make a decision for what is best right then. And you can do a post-mortem on, oh, okay, looking back, where were we most exposed today? And that's a good thing to do. And, and that's how you learn. But I can't say any more than yes, I do recommend, and definitely below 7,800 foot camp, because these crevasses on this lower Kahiltna glacier are what they call bus eaters. Like, they're huge. Like, you'll break through and you just see black below. Okay. Eric is asking, in reference to mountaineering boots, do you typically recommend double boots with overboot or triple boot? The double boots these days are pretty darn warm. So I've just always gone up with a double boot, like 6,000 meter. First time I climbed it, I had Olympus Mons. It's like an 8,000 meter boot. And you're really hot the first, the lower mountain, and then on the upper mountain, you're fine. And then the opposite is true. Like, if you have a 6,000 meter boot, the lower part of the climb is more comfortable. And then you might have to shake your feet a little bit more on the upper mountain if it's cold. Noah is asking, curious about your thoughts on ski difficulty above 14 descending from the summit, rescue gully, Misner, or fixed lines. Yeah, the hardest part about skiing above 14 is it's hard to breathe. It's like turn, breathe, turn, breathe. And the other hard thing is that the snow conditions are quite variable. Like the wind is going to blow at a different amount up there. You're going to have different snow conditions. So, yeah, it's difficult. You need to be a double black diamond skier for sure to even consider skiing the rescue gully or the fixed lines, because it's like, I think it's 45 degrees. So, get real honest with yourself about how many times you've done that, and now add that elevation on, and it's just harder. Julian is asking, talking about crevasses and glacier, how complex is the glacier travel on the lower mountain? Doable in a whiteout with good nav skills, or big no? I would say it is doable with good navigation skills in a whiteout, but it's not very fun. And you also have to consider that you have a sled on the back of your body. And so if you go in a crevasse and that sled goes in a crevasse, that's an extra thing that you got to deal with. Most people's main strategy on Denali is bring a crap ton of food and wait until it's optimal. And that works, like the first time I climbed it, we were on the mountain for 23 days and it was insanely boring, but we made it to the top and we got all of our clients to the top. And that's what people were there for, is get to the top. And the fastest I've done it was 6 days with Janelle, and we had acclimatized off the mountain. We just like roped and ride. It was sweet. And so most people are somewhere in the middle. Like I'd say average, and you could look up these numbers, but in my mind, it's probably 12 days is average, because it's like 8 days of action and then another 4 days of weather or resting. This is a social experience. Okay, there's going to be hundreds of people on the West Buttress route. You could be grumpy about that and be like, my alpine experience is being or you could say, oh, there's a positive here, and it's information, it's beta, it's talk to these people, like, hey, did you have any sagging bridges on the section from base camp to 7,800 foot? Oh, okay, cool. That got wanded, or we're going over here, or oh, I tracked it. Can you airdrop me that route line? You should have Gaia GPS and the ability to share route lines via Bluetooth. I guess you'd have to have an iPhone for that, but group expectations, I think, are pretty important with the people you're climbing with. Getting on the same page as far as like, are we going to do this cheap? Are we going to do this like ballers? That's one bucket that you need to answer. Are we going to do this as fast as possible? Or are we going to do this as long as it takes? Is there a fixed out date? Are we going to go as fast as we possibly can? And so if it's blue, we're moving and we'll just go and go and go until we blow up. Or are we going to stick to this plan of move to here, wait, move to here, wait, move to here? These are sticking points within groups that, if you don't set your clear expectation, which is subject to change, of course, then it can cause a lot of drama. Okay, and so having the people that you climb with, if you set good expectation, or if you're good at setting expectations, then you can maintain those friends for the rest of your life. And if you botch it, then you're going to ruin your trip, which is a ton of time and money and energy wasted, and you're going to burn the bridge of that friendship. So really getting on the same page and having open communication is great, and a good guide will foster that within the group, while at the same time maintaining, making sure that the group isn't having some mutiny against the whole situation. I don't know, there's all kinds of psych experiments that could be going on this mountain. But what sort of climbs do you expect unguided parties to complete before attempting Denali? Thanks, Gold Scott. Yeah, Orzab is great. Hood is great. Rainier is great. And, like Liberty Ridge on Rainier, Mount Blanc. Anytime you're like sleeping on a glacier multiple days, that is you're hitting the mark, and because really the goal is to have as little new as possible. So I've slept on, in a tent. I've experienced a whiteout. I've experienced a heavy backpack. And the more of these things that you can have as your, yep, been there, done that, then your brain can operate at just keeping your eye on the prize of climbing this in good style. Thoughts on hypoxic tents? I would say direct message Tracy on that one. I've never slept in a hypoxic tent, but it sure can't hurt. I'd say go for it. The cynic in me says that placebos work, and the scientist in me says, yeah, it's gonna help.
You want me to answer real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
So it does mimic and helps your body adapt, but it doesn't mimic the low pressure you experience at altitude. So it allows you to be at altitude and not be sick. But when you start moving, you still feel it a lot. So I would say it's not an 100% adaptation. The other thing is a lot of people do not sleep well in these tents. And so you sacrifice a lot in terms of just rest and recovery, particularly if you're training while you're sleeping in the tent. So that's like a big compromise. And I would say, you need to spend a good 6 to 8 weeks in the tent for it to actually do anything because you're only in it while you're sleeping. And you need to be in it like 8 hours a night. So if you're somebody who only sleeps 5 or 6 hours a night, it's not going to work. There's a lot of good data and articles on like uphill athlete and evoke endurance about using these tents. So, but they do work. I've used them multiple times, but you've got to be rigorous or it isn't going to give you the effect you want.
Thank you. Awesome. And just Tracy, how many nights would you say in your life you've slept in a tent? Just for
In a hypoxic tent,
yeah,
I mean, I've probably used the tent 4 or 5 times to do. I used it for Ama de Blanc. I've used it for attempts on Everest. I'm using it for this, even though we're going to Colorado.
yeah, lots of use. But she's still doing it. I think that's
But
the
I sleep well in it. It doesn't bother me.
okay.
The other thing is it gets hot in the tent, and so if you don't sleep well unless you're really cool, I mean, there's a lot of things that can mess up your sleep. And then that compromises, again, particularly if you're training, your ability to recover.
Yeah, yeah, that's very well said. Okay, Shane, best month to attempt, May or June? June. Better weather or better snow in one of the months versus the other? June. Does it feel like Rainier with a very well established route and wands every 20 feet? No. Great insights, Tracy. Ideal group size for unguided trip? 4. Is two-party person poor choice for crevasse danger? It's more poorer of a choice than a 3-person group. If you're going to be 2 people on a rope team, you need to have practice single person crevasse rescue. And that is hard. That's very hard. And then the other thing, while we're on this topic with 3 versus 2 versus 4, guided groups will use the other rope team as their safety net. So they'll be totally spread out, one person tied in at the end, one person tied in the other end, and then maybe 2 other clients spread out on a 60-meter rope. And so 4 people on a 60-meter rope end to end. And they are relying on their other rope team to come in and use that other rope for the rescue. If you're climbing independently, you need to have that rescue rope on your person. Okay, so one example would be a woman asked about a party of 2 having 2 30-meter ropes and tying the ends with a double fisherman's knot, and then from the ends being, let's say, a total of 7 meters and 7 meters, and then they have the rest of the 23 meters on their person for the rescue. And that's a good setup. Is that as opposed to one 60-meter rope? And so then if they're skiing down, one person can have 30 meters on their rope, on their backpack, and one person can have 30 meters like coiled away. One 30-meter or one 40-meter rope for a group is generally not enough. we're going to be, Tracy, Philip, and I are a group of 3, and we're going to have a 60-meter rope plus a 40-meter tag line for retreat on the Cassine. But we'll get to that in 6 minutes. Okay. Tori, I live at 10-2 Leadville, and I'm planning on spending a little time as low as possible. Do you think it's significant? Do you think this significantly is an advantage? Yeah, totally. Like Crusher. Yeah, go climb a couple 14ers and you'll be even more psyched. Favorite 14,000 camp activity while waiting for weather? Splicing some 12 strand. Yes, I've definitely spliced some 12 strand. Unfortunately, you can, like, I'm getting better at it and I can splice really quickly. 6 dice for Farkle. Look up Farkle. It's a good one because you can throw it into like your cup and it doesn't take a board. Cards, of course, we play a lot of Rummy, and then having the solar panel and battery charging for all the phone things. I just found an Apple gift card with $150 on it because I bought a laptop, and I'm gonna like totally spend all of that on shows. Best solo setup. I'd say don't do it, Xavier. Solo setup. If you're going to die in a crevasse, don't die on the west buttress going solo. That's silly. Do something way more hardcore because there's, how many people are in this room right now? 99? Seriously, Xavier, just message some of these people and say, hey, you want to climb Denali with me? Doing it solo, in my opinion, is a mistake because you can die falling in a crevasse and that would be sad. And your mom would be very sad. Okay, we got 3 more minutes on West Buttress. I want to take that time to talk more about the progression of getting to Denali. So climbing Rainier is a really, really great test piece because it's 9,000 feet of climbing. It's big terrain. You drive up to that, you park on either of the parking lots, and you're like, holy, that's a big mountain. When you land on Denali, you're going to be saying the same thing, like, whoa, that's a lot of work. And so training your brain to like take it in little pieces and say, I can do this, and then you do it is a good practice. And going big, like I think far too often people fail because they have been so disciplined about getting in the routine of getting on the stationary bike for 45 minutes a day. And then boom, we have to do like 6 hours of hard work and they're blown up. And so really putting in the time to do those longer days, that zone 1, that zone 2 with load on your back is going to serve you way better than doing your arms day and then doing your legs day and then doing your abs day. I think that's going to, like if you can get out there and just like spend time on your feet adventuring and making decisions, that's going to be really, really good training for this. Ethics and etiquette considerations so you aren't a jerk to other people or the mountain. Yeah, I'd say, peeing in the pee hole, and if you have a pee bottle, then empty it in the pee bottle or pee hole. I think that's a kind of a lame thing to just put pee everywhere. Think of it as like you're in this together, and the more people that succeed, it's going to go around, come around type of thing. Like, oh, my pad just popped. Do you have a repair kit? Mine doesn't work. Yeah, I got that. And so you're making these friends and these connections with other people on the mountain, and that's going to make it way just an enjoyable experience. Like from my 2012 expedition, one person I met up there turned into a roommate for 3 years and is still a friend. Another one I co-guided with in Chile. Another one we're reconnecting. He's in the military and we're going to do some training together. And this is all connections made on Denali. This is like 50 classic climbs. Nobody knew who I was from anybody. There was none of that like, oh yeah, I follow you on whatever. This is just me. Actually, and my wife being like, hey, let's play cards, so do that. I think that's the best way. Hygiene considerations. So this one's easy. Bring hand sanitizer and bring wet wipes, but don't get the Costco size big one because that turns into a frozen brick. Get the smaller ones, and so you can keep them warm. And then you start on your face, you go to your armpits, you go to your crotch, and then you go to your butt, and then you throw it away. That's easy, How much TP do I bring? I don't know. A roll. It's not that heavy, but definitely have a Ziploc bag for it. Yeah, the friendliness of guided versus unguided, it's going to just depend on the given situation. If you're a jerk, you're probably going to see a whole bunch of other jerks in the world. If you're nice and considerate, you're probably going to see a whole bunch of nice and considerate people in the world. People have good days and people have bad days, and if you just don't take anything personally and do your best, then it's going to work out for you. And the guides up there, a lot of them are personal friends, and they're good people. I think where people kind of derail is, as a guide, if I see someone that's like obviously in deep water, like their ambition exceeds their talent, I'm not going to help perpetuate that. And I'm going to pull back from that because I don't want to see someone get themselves hurt. I'm going to hey, let's talk you back to the, back down, as opposed to giving you beta to keep going up. Bringing a cook tent with a pyramid worth the wait and effort to set up. Absolutely bring a cook tent because it gets you out of the sun. There's no shade. And so you even on cloudy days, you're going to be getting sunburnt. And if you have that cook tent, the one pole cook tent, you dig in, and that's also your social area. So if you have a cook tent and somebody else doesn't, they're going to come in, they're going to hang out, and you're going to be psyched. And if there's a 3-day storm, you're going to be hanging out in that thing a lot, and it's just going to keep morale high, and you're going to want to go up versus down when the clouds part. So with the Mountain Sense courses, I am doing a deal for 48 hours, and it's 30% off. And you can go to that link I just put in the chat. 30% off the mountaineering course. And you can opt in for 3 or 2 other courses for way less than what they normally cost. And you can check that out. The Crevasse Rescue course and the 50 non-textbook anchors courses. Another segue is gear that I haven't posted yet on Instagram. Let me share my screen again. The best... So because I'm a big nerd, I like gear, and sometimes the gear doesn't quite work with what I want. I think this is the best compression stuff sack until this one came along. And this one is made out of Tyvek, so it's one of those, I could bury this if I needed to bail in an emergency. And then I made the compression part with Kevlar and some little cinchy string things and Dyneema. And so that's a pretty lightweight setup. And these are just the compression part. There's the Tyvek, and it's my sleeping bag in there. 20-degree down bag. And then these are just squares of Dyneema. And to connect them, there's no stitching because that wouldn't work. Can you see that? Or is that really small? Maybe that's really small. It's a sheet bend knot. And the sheet bend knot is legit. Okay, so that's one thing. The next thing is this Samaya Radical 3 tent. This is a 3-person first light, basically, made out of Dyneema, and the body and poles, I put all of this on the scale, and it was just a touch over 2 pounds for a 3-person tent. That is a game changer, and that is rad. Another gear thing that I think is a game changer-esque is these treb, I don't know how to say it, saucers. They're made out of like a polythermal moldable carbon stuff, and they step in and out of your crampons without having to take off the crampons. So that's huge, to be able to have a float plate like a snowshoe where you still have the front spikes exposed so you can still go up steep stuff, and then when it gets too icy or not deep, then you can just pop them off without having to take off your crampons. That's awesome. Okay, this one is what I'm really excited about. Okay, so this is my reactor stove, right? And these get cold when you run them, especially when it's freezing. When it's freezing, the ambient air temperature is freezing, they can stop working, and that means you don't have water, and that's bad. So people use copper, and they take heat from the flame and they drive it into the can. Okay, so here's the cool part. I took Kevlar and I put magnets in it. Come on. And it just sticks on there and transfers the heat. Tell me that's not cool. Go ahead, say it. And then this guy, this is just a freeze-dried bag because it's waterproof and pretty durable. And then I put spray adhesive to put a little insulation on there. And again, this Kevlar kite string I've been using a lot, and you can't burn it. Kevlar has like a melting temperature of 1,000 degrees centigrade or something crazy. Like it's what firefighters use to rappel out of buildings. And you can get a whole spool of it for like $40 on Amazon. So it'll sit in the bath. This copper thing will heat the bath so it's not just frozen chunks, and hopefully I won't explode. But MSR does not recommend this. They recommend white gas stoves for... Oh, and then we'll also have a hang kit. So that's just for the Cassine Ridge. If you're climbing the West Buttress, you'll use a white gas stove because using isobutane is silly. Okay?
Mark,
all right.
On the topic of small gadgets and doodads, first off, you're a bad influence.
Yes.
Danima. Seeing people on the mountain, what's a common item that people bring that they think they're going to need that they don't, that they drag all the way in there and then they don't actually end up using it on the climb?
Probably a snow saw, because there's always a snow saw that you can borrow from somebody. Or I'd say also people bring like 20 plus days of food and they don't eat it. Those would be the main. And then the things I've used that I didn't, we stopped at Costco and got the big thing of Nutella, and it just turns into a brick. And so then you have this worthless brick of like, it should be good, but it's absolutely not good. But yeah, I'd say extra food is kind of the general thing. All right. Any tips on keeping sleeping bag loft on a sub-zero trip like this? Yeah, you gotta, for the sleeping bags, you have to take advantage of drying out when you can. And so you're gonna take 3 carabiners and clip them all to wherever you can clip your sleeping bag to those carabiners, and then clip that to the outside of your tent. There have been people that have lost their tent getting blown away because it's totally calm, not a puff of wind, and then boom, microburst, and their tent is like in some crevasse a mile away. So dry out whenever you possibly can. If you have more gas, you can, in an Nalgene bottle, wrap it in a t-shirt with some hot water, throw that in the bottom, and that heat is going to dry out the sleeping bag and maintain loft as well. And so you're going to burn a lot of gas, white gas. And so, that's just part of it. Okay, just Chris is asking about splicing cord. Just Google Brummel locking eye splice, and I just learned it on YouTube. And actually, I knew someone would ask that, so I brought here it is. So this is called a D-splicer, and you could just use like wire, like whatever wire you can find. but this is steel, so it's stiff and thin, and they charge like $70 for this and like a few others at different gauges. But that's one of the tools that you use to splice, but you can just use a wire. And How Not to Highline has a bunch of information on the 12 strand Dyneema as well, like maybe too much. But do you generally rely on freeze dried meals? Whoa, it's jumping around. Or have other suggestions for food? Yeah, don't rely on freeze dried meals like at all for the West Buttress. Just we have freeze dried meals for just the Cassine Ridge itself, and we're hoping to do it in 2.5 days. So on that note, here's my geekiness for the food for my buddy Jed Porter calls this sending food. So it's like for en route, what you're gonna eat. You know, high power, budget doesn't matter. You know, eat macadamia nuts because they're more calories per gram. Sorry, this is loud. So I took my vacuum sealer and I sealed up a breakfast and a dinner, and I left the packaging in there because if your package gets a hole in it, or you don't want your pad thai to taste like mushroom risotto, because that would be uncivilized. So it's not. This isn't a weight savings thing. This is a bulk savings thing, and I think it's because 4 days we'll carry 4 days of food with us on route, and it was 3 pounds for breakfast and dinner, and then lunches will be another 3 pounds probably. So it's 6 pounds of food starting out, which is more than 10% of our pack weight, which is not a small consideration. All right, going back to the questions here. S Glass, what do you find most reliable communication method for those back in the lower 48? Garmin InReach Mini, pretty reliable. There are places that have service, like cell service, and that varies year to year and storm to storm, but you can get service. How do you recommend insulating your ice axe with a bike tube? Yeah, you could use a bike tube. This stuff seems to be pretty good as well. This Reflectix stuff, just wrap that with some grip tape or something. Basically, anytime you're putting more space between you and metal is insulation. Also, newbie question, why? Please keep the newbie questions coming. You don't have to preface it. Okay, that's why we're here. Why are we needing to splice cord? Oh, so splicing cord is just instead of having a bar tacked cord that you buy, this is a big spool of it. And so instead of paying $15 for a Dyneema sling that has a bar tack, you can make your own now for $1 with this splice cord. And it's so nerdy, like you don't need to actually splice anything and climb your whole life without splicing one thing. All right.
A note on the you talked about the Garmin. Do you have friends text you weather, or do you ever trust the weather data that you can pull from it?
I have not had good luck trusting the data that I could pull from it, but I'm also lazy and I'd rather just communicate with my wife about what the weather links are saying. And in the course, there are several links to the weather synopsis. You also get weather at 14, and with a VHF radio, you can get 8 p.m. weather forecast. That being said, most of the time, the forecast says partly cloudy, chance of snow, cold. That's going to be like your best forecast ever. And you just kind of have to, we were paying Jim Woodmansee $50 for a forecast, and he said they would last about 3 days. He could predict 3 days out. Even that is like subject to change. And he'll say that, like, hey, this like mountain weather just changes. And so sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you get neutral, and sometimes you get bit with that. So That's why you bring puffy pants and high fitness, so you can just like keep moving. If it goes south on you, you don't want to sit down and die. All right. What's your key? Okay, I think I just had that one, Patty. Ideal snack to munch on throughout the day. I really like fancy mixed nuts that, it's salty, a lot of calories. One year we went to Costco and we got the Jelly Bellies container. And so that was fun to like pick. Janelle would like pick her favorites. I was like, you can't pick. You gotta just grab, like we're gonna end up with all black ones at the bottom. That's not cool. She kept picking. Ideal Glacier Kit. So that's in the course as well. But the 15-second answer is everyone has to have a micro traction or nano traction. Everyone has to have a tib lock, and everyone has to have a double link sling, and then carabiners that are associated with that. And with that, you should be pretty good to go for, and then enough rope, and you should be good to go with crevasse rescue. But the deal with let's see, what am I doing? I can't believe it. I'm selling the crevasse rescue course with this deal for only $49. So you can go deep dive on that at the checkout on the course, which is linked to in the chat here. All right, Davis, welcome. Safety med kit, best number one tip to have a safe trip. I would say, you need to stop bleeding. And so like some vacuum sealed compression gauze. I don't have any with me right here, but I think that's gonna be like your caca hits the fan. And then the absolute thing that I'll bring in first aid world is Leuko tape, and put that on my heels. Leuko P, like the letter Paul. I use that all the time. And the only downside to it is if you keep it in your backpack and it gets cold and hot, it ruins it. So you have to keep it at home. I'll put that on my heels for blister prevention.
Hey, Mark. I know I've seen a lot of beta online saying you need like a -40 bag plus liner plus all this stuff. And then I see folks that are using something much less. Do you normally take a -40 bag with you?
No. I do sleep warm. So that's a big, asterisk. So I think your best way to stay warm is a really good sleeping pad. And so I like the Neo Air X Therm. It's like R7 or really high. There are higher R value ones, and then you can even beef that R value up. This trip I'm going to have this stuff under 3/4 of that pad, so it's like a double duty. This is kind of, it's not closed cell phone, but it's pretty small. And then that big pad, and then with that setup, I think -10 should be fine. And then the other considerations are you going to be 3 people in a 3-man tent? Are you going to be 2 men in a 3-man tent? Are you going to be 1 person in a 2-man tent? These are colder or warmer. Are you going to have enough fuel to do that warm bottle? Are you going to have puffy pants? If you have puffy pants and you can do the bottle and you have 3 people in 3-person, a 0-degree bag is probably fine. The downside is that they wet out a little quicker. So if you're in a real big storm, if you're at 17,000 feet and you're going to be in a storm for 10 days and you won't be able to get out of the tent, I would definitely want a -40-degree bag, like for sure. But if we just hedge for all the worst case scenarios, you're not going to get up the mountain because your backpack's going to weigh 145 pounds. We'll put a link on Bolt WX. Maybe that's weather. Levi, thank you for purchasing. I appreciate that, as do my kids. Casino in a day, what's in your pack? Good question, John. Basically, feathers and food. Okay? if you have feathers and you have food, you should have nothing else. And you better like open up a big can of whoop ass and like tackle that thing. And you should be acclimatized for like 3 weeks on the mountain. You can Google Colin Haley doing the Cassine in 8 hours, I believe, and he made a video on that. It's a couple really important things is you're not Colin Haley. Another important thing is he doesn't talk about how long he acclimatizes. Weeks. Like he's literally up there weeks. And he goes to the summit at least once, probably twice. And it's like no big deal to go to the summit for him. And so Cassine in a day, I mean, Cassine in an Alaska day, you know, in June, totally doable because it's, sun never sets. But you're going to be tired. Like I would think Cassine in a day is generally reserved for people that have done it before or aren't paying a dime to be there because they have all kinds of sponsors because they have proven themselves in other capacities to be in the top 1% of 1%. Patty's asking about whether I think in terms of a strategy, just try to talk to other people and try to talk to positive people. This is something that I go into a little bit in the course is like there's naysayers, there's just negative people. You need to stay away from them. They will suck your energy and you will want to go home right behind them. And then there's like positive people, which you want to stick around and like, we're making educated decisions, we're taking all that, but we're still psyched to go up. And then there's super stokers who their Superman cape is bright and it doesn't matter what the forecast is, they're going forward and, damn the torpedoes type of thing. And they are going to have a really successful career until they're dead, which might be soon. So you need to find that middle ground of people that you're getting other forecasts from, because that's what everyone talks about. Like seriously, everyone talks about the weather all the time ad nauseum. Might be a good rule, like, hey, this dinner we're not going to talk about the weather at all. Like it's just not on the topic. All right, and then there's some good beta in there for weather stuff. Are we talking down bags exclusively? Yeah, I've only used a down bag. Synthetic bags are just really, really big, but you can bring one. I just haven't used it. I'm not trying to like poo-poo a synthetic bag. I just haven't used one. Rad line for the west buttress or heavy rope. Yeah, bring a rad line. They're great. You just need to have a micro traction or a nano traction and a tib lock because your prusik is not going to work on a slippery 6mm rope. If you are stormed in for long periods of time, for any tips for keeping the tent clean, dry, and not stinky? I don't know about stinky, but clean and dry, if you bring a kitchen sponge, you can wipe the inside of the tent and squeeze it out. And that is a really important thing. Have one sponge for cooking and one sponge for the tent exclusively, because if you start like squeegeeing your tent with ramen sponge, you're not going to be too thrilled about that. Do you like to wear a lot of layers when sleeping in your down bag? Yes. I've found recently, if I'm colder at first, wearing a few layers gives me body heat. My bag faster and stay warmer throughout the night. Yeah, I think if that's working for you, like absolutely go for it. Who am I to say that you shouldn't do that? Like, yeah, do whatever works. And I think I'm more lazy. Like I'll just go to bed if it's cold with all of my clothes on. And put my Gore-Tex over the top to kind of keep my bag a little bit dry. And then it's easier to get up to pee or get up out of the tent. And when the alarm goes off, and I'm fully dressed. Okay. Do you prefer approaching the Cassine options? Okay, good. Thank you, Matt, for putting us back onto Cassine Ridge. Let's share the screen again. Okay. So this is about approaching the Cassine. Let's zoom out a little bit here.
This route stuff you have in Google Earth here, can you bring that as a GPX? like a track file to actually follow en route, or is it only in Google Earth?
You can put this on any phone app, and you can download satellite images as well. You can actually be seeing the crevasses and hit the locate me button, and you'll see where you are relative to when the picture was taken of those crevasses. We're going to go to 11,000 foot camp around Windy Corner, 14,000 foot camp, and we're going to acclimatize there. Like the first time we attempted it, we went up the fixed lines a day, we rested, we went up to the Audubon and got stormed out, came back down, and then most people will go up to what's called the West Rib Cutoff, which is like 16.1, 16.3, and then down this way. The only way I've personally done it is all the way down the West Rib, which is this thing, which is not nothing. Like it's an effort, and we had to stop right here because of rockfall. The whole mountain had melted out basically, and then we climbed back up here and back to 14. But if you had the conditions, you would then rappel / facing in down climb. It's steep in this couloir here. This is just walking downhill, and then across to the Bergstrand and then up. Another option, and that's a big day. Like it's going to be a full effort to get from 14 to the Bergstrand if you go down the West Rib. This over here is the Seattle ramp, and I've looked and talked to several people, and maybe you're lucky if you can follow someone's tracks, but there's always at least one rappel in this section, which can eat up some time, but it's a lot shorter and steeper. And then the third option would be to just go back and around. You know, if you have skis, I would be pretty tempted to just go back and around and up what's called the Northeast Fork or the Valley of Death, and go up this way, because this is just walking all the way to the base. What our strategy this year is going to be to acclimatize off mountain, go up to 70 foot with our skis, and then ditch the skis with our base camp tent and our bigger sleeping bags and cache it, and then go with the float plates, walk up here and carry those up and over. And so we'll have all of our stuff. Those float plates will be our buoyancy all the way back down, and then pick up the skis and ski out. So it's tricky, right? It adds a day and a lot of effort just to get to the route. And this is why there's some stat out there that like a lot of people register to climb the Cassin Ridge and very few actually do it, because it's like, holy cow, this is a lot of work and this is a big mountain, and I didn't get the exact, perfect, situation in terms of weather and stoke and conditions and whatnot. Live in DC. Thoughts on prep for altitude coming from low levels? It's hard. Yep. You just gotta, if you're coming from sea level, you gotta give it time, and you gotta know that it's gonna hurt and you're gonna have a headache, and you just gotta deal. Like, it's not very fun. Yeah. Any tips for caching gear and how to find it later? Any items you'd avoid caching? Yeah, so one main mistake I've made with caching gear is not putting it in a trash bag. I thought my waterproof duffel bag was waterproof, and it's totally not. So we got back to our bag after however many days, and like my ski boots were soaked, the liners were soaked, everything was just soaked. So put it in a trash bag and then put it in your duffel and then bury it. Bury it deep, and you'll have wands for caching stuff, and you have to mark it with your sticker to say this is mine and this is when I'm coming back to get it. Some people will use a ski probe and put the sheath of the ski probe at the top, like on the pull string, and so they can quickly identify theirs. And then you can also put it deeper in. The ravens on Denali are pretty smart, and they can dig down and undo zippers and just make a mess of all of your food that you have at base camp that you're going to celebrate with, and now you don't have chips for your salsa and you're sad about that. It happens kind of a lot. Glove mitten recommendations. I'm gonna have 5 pairs of gloves. 3 is not enough because if they get wet, you're pretty sad. Showa gloves are also a rubberized glove if you're going to be in the snow that can keep them dry, but they also don't breathe at all. So you want to play with them. Okay, so back to the Cassine. Let's talk strategy. You get to the Bergstrand and quick rabbit trail. One of 3 crevasses I've ever fallen in was in this flat section right here. And I only went up to my waist, thankfully. But the whole like idea of compression and tension, and that's the only places where crevasses are, is just not accurate. Like they're in flat spots too, especially on bigger glaciers. So be roped up. Okay, so you start at the Bergstrand, and the Japanese couloir is steep, but it is simul-climbable if you're a good ice climber. And what does good mean? I don't know. You'll just get there and be like, yeah, I can simul-climb this. Or you'll pitch it out and be a lot slower. And then there's only one crux, and it's like there-ish, and it's about 3 body lengths of hard climbing. And if your pack is light, you can do that with the pack on. But anytime you're really in it and you're feeling like you might fall, my recommendation on strategy is to ditch the pack on an ice screw, climb the pitch, second comes up, you haul the pack, and then the second climbs it, and then you go on. Hauling the pack, it adds a little bit of time, but not as much time as falling and breaking your ankle. So don't fall, basically. And then you get up, and then you're on the ridge itself. And the next thing of note is the cowboy. Oh, there's a little section of rock here. I think they call it 5.8, but it's really like 5.6. And then cowboy arete, it can be terrifying, it can be easy. It just depends on how the wind blew. And that's where you're going to have the pickets, and you're going to be traversing beside your pickets. And there's a big flat camp spot here. From there, you go up, and it's just kind of steep, snow, cruisy, and you get into the rock bands, and you can burn up a lot of time. And people have gone every single way, and you'll see fixed gear every single way. So the beta is don't just follow fixed gear, like really follow your nose about where is the best way to go in this particular piece of terrain. And knowing that unless you're really off route, it's probably going to go. So you can make it work. And then you get a nice little rest here. And this is the second rock band. This is where people get lost. And if here on the second rock band, the beta is, you really want to hit this particular weakness. If you don't hit it, you're going to be in harder terrain. And it's fairly obvious. And there's good photos on Super Topo, which are free. And you just Google Super Topo Cassine Topo route or something like that. And we camp there. And then from there to the top, it is an endurance mission. And if it's knee-deep snow on this section, which it could be waist deep, those float plates are going to make or break, getting to the top that day or getting to here and being blown out and needing to spend another day and sleeping at 17.6, which is not that awesome in terms of like high altitude sicknesses, and just you're not really recovering, and then you're extending your needed window of time to have good weather, but from here it's just solid blue collar work. And then you get here, and when you get here, the people going up the West Buttress are like, what? Where'd you come from? You're like, oh, well, I'm glad you asked. I just climbed the Cassine Ridge. And then you still have a little bit of time to get from, I think they call this Cahiltna Horn, to the summit. It's like another 300 vertical feet. Okay. And then what Janelle and I did when we descended was we kind of what I call lived off the land. It's basically this idea that other people will help you out. People are psyched for you when you've climbed the Cassine Ridge, and so we were literally pooping in other people's CMCs. We were eating other people's food. We still slept in our tent, but yeah, they just kind of like, it's like those trail angels on the Appalachian Trail or the Pacific Crest Trail. People are just helping you out because there's a general psych, and your psych gets them psyched. I think getting back down and out is you're riding the high at that point. Would you consider climbing the Cassine Ridge in ski boots instead of caching them? No, I wouldn't. I know that like ski boots are definitely getting more climbable, but climbing boots are just so much more climbable than ski boots, and they're warmer, they're a little lighter. Definitely can be done for sure, but it wouldn't be my first choice. Did you bring a separate pack for the summit push? No, I found the Blue Ice Stash 60 liter pack. It is light, it is 60 liters, and it is relatively affordable. So I'm just going to have that pack. And Tracy says it is sweet. Thank you, Tracy. In general, it's good to have this idea of like, well, it'd be nice to have this, but what do you actually need? And then have maybe like 3 total things that you're like, no, I want this. I know no one else on the mountain is going to have it, but I want it, whether that's like a bigger sleeping pad or a Kindle and your, iPad, or I don't know, whatever. But the second you start doing more than 3 of those things, you're just going to have a really heavy pack, which is doable, but it hurts your chances for success. Climbing skills and experience you need for the Cassine. I would say you need to be able to lead Water Ice 5. You need to be able to rock climb 510. And you need to have had probably 10 grade 4 routes under your belt for sure. Like 15 would be better as far as the hard skills of being able to do that particular route. Yeah, so the Stash 60 he's saying is not very durable, and I would say that that's going to be like par for the course with lightweight gear. It's not going to be this like I work on search and rescue and I throw it in the back of the truck, 5 days a week type of gear.
A quick question. With the Cassine, you say like a Petzl is this a level of tech tool that you need when you get away with something slightly less aggressive?
Yeah, so I'm going to do 1 and 1. So I'll have one Nomic equivalent, which is the Camp Extreme, and then the Black Diamond Venom LT with the head weights. I put that on my Instagram to make the head weight more. Because the big thing is having enough swinging power to penetrate this hard, like Alaska hard ice, and it's hard, so you want that swing weight. Along that line, do not climb Denali via any route with aluminum heel crampons. People probably get away with it, especially like skiers love aluminum. I love aluminum heel crampons, but if you're walking down icy terrain and you have aluminum on, you will not bite in as well as if you have steel. So just go full steel, and it will save you from a lot of like scary like slip outs. Okay, do you have a sled strategy for 2-person team? Yeah. So the sled strategy, we go in depth in the course with it, but it's basically a pontoon. You're gonna put the 2 sleds together side by side so they can't roll, and the first person is going to carry those, and the back person has nothing, and that's connected to the climbing rope as well. Cassine and party of 2 versus 3. Yeah, 3 takes more time, but it's less weight per person, and there's more trail breakers. So 3 has its advantages. In terms of sleeping, there's plenty of room to sleep on the Cassine with 3, or even 6. So Cassine and party of 3 maybe the only downside is more technical rope management or belay stance management at those like 6 belay stances. Thoughts on climbing the rescue gully versus the fixed lines? I think climbing the rescue gully, like you could, but it's like it's right there, so like you're not. If you're gonna climb something that's not the fixed lines, I would do like the chicken rib or the upper west rib, as opposed to the rescue gully. Tips for good glacier living and winter self care: bring sunscreen or cover up, sombrero hat. Get out of that sun. If you burn your lips on day one, you'll be very sad. And winter living, having puffy boots is really nice, or like puffy boots. Thank you.
Down booties.
Thank you. That's really nice to get your feet out of those clunkers, and having enough fuel to do the warm bottles at night is pretty nice. High living. And then I would say spend 30% more on food than you would normally, just to have something nice and like something to look forward to. If you're just eating ramen, you're going to be, and oatmeal, you're going to be pretty sad. But you can also like ask people coming down, hey, do you have any extra food? And they'll be psyched to give it to you because they don't want to carry it out. And we call that living off the land. And one year we like got to 14 and we had just started with a liter of gas and a like 4 days of food, 5 days of food or something. And so we showed up to 14 camp with almost nothing and just started asking around. And within an hour and a half, we had 8 gallons of gas, a roll of disc of brie cheese, some smoked salmon, like all these accoutrements. And it was like, oh, okay, that was time well spent. And, just live. Yeah, it was awesome. Okay, Ben's asking, how would you rate the difficulty of skiing the Mesner Orient Express? I haven't skied those, so I can't really speak to it. It's harder. But they're not like, it's not like skiing University Peak or something. It is mere mortals ski them. Big pack, I would say 60-liter pack should be fine. Unless you're a party of 2, then you probably need to do 70-liter pack. Harrison, what kind of system do you use for carrying heavy mirrorless? If I'm carrying a DSLR camera, I'll have it on my hip belt, because if it's in my pack, I don't use it. So, getting that out, and I just have like a low alpine case. I haven't nerded out with that too much. I tried to make a carbon fiber one. It absolutely didn't work. I almost lost my lens because it was bad.
What does the Alpine case look like for the camera?
The brand Alpine Low, or Low Alpine, sorry, Low Alpine. And if you just go into a camera store with your setup, your body and lens, and you just shove it into the smallest one it can possibly get. I think the only beta I have is I found one that was like a really tight zipper, or tight to get it zipped on with the lens I wanted, and I ended up like cutting out the padding off of the flip lid so I could zip it easier. But
the Hyperlight Mountain Gear camera case is really good. I used it for about 3 weeks up in Norway recently, and you can put it on your chest strap, sorry, on your sternum strap, on your hip, various other places. It's pretty waterproof and pretty sort of vibration resistant.
Sweet, awesome, thank you. I have not tried that one, but they seem to be, yeah. That's rad. Okay, the bikini wax, narrowing your butthole, that's a standard. Come on, everyone knows that. Before you're going to go on a glacier for a month, you don't want hair down there. Get rid of it. Okay, do you napkin math for fuel quantity? Oh, okay, so it's like, it's in the course. I don't remember the exact numbers, but no, I don't napkin math it. There is an equation, and if you have used a stove in the summertime and those numbers, basically double it for melting your own water. And then if you're like a heavy water drinker, maybe do it even more. And then there is an art to like using the minimum amount of fuel. And when you're starting out, you're going to use more fuel than you do on year 5 after using a stove for a while. So maybe factor that in to the equation. Basically, if you run out of fuel, you're done. Like that's really bad. And that's why everyone brings extra. And that's why there's so much extra once you get to 14 camp. So it's kind of this like push pull. Okay, we got 1 more minute. Let's see. Is the stubble for bikini wax not a ticking time bomb? I think it depends on your ethnicity on the stubble in your crack, and probably best to experiment with that prior to prior to stepping foot on the glacier. The other thing, joking aside, I'm not joking about this, but anyway, on a more serious note, go to the dentist before you go on Denali as well. Just get those cavities like sorted, because that would be a ticking time bomb. All right, everybody. Thank you very much for showing up and for joining me here. Course offerings and the 30% off the alpinism course or mountaineering course is with coupon code ZOOM. And then there's also those other deals going on. This recording will live after this 24-hour free period, will live behind the paywall of the course. So if you enroll, then you'll have unlimited forever access to all of the content and to questions directly towards me. So if you are taking the course and you enter a question under any of the videos, I get an email, and like a squirrel, I try to respond to that like bling. Oh, whatever I was doing just doesn't count anymore. I'm going to answer my Mountain Sense students' questions. Okay. Please stay as safe as you possibly can doing dangerous things. And I think you can do that with good education and good climbing partners that are also educated. So have a good night, everybody.